Hey guys, back with week 10 waiver wire pickups. Let's jump right into it with Duke Johnson. This is what we've been expecting to see out of Duke. It's too bad we had to wait for Todd Haley and Hugh Jackson to be fired, but better late than never, right? In hindsight, we probably should have seen this coming. We know Todd Haley back during the Hard Knocks filming was upset that Johnson wasn't actually practicing. He said the team was soft and needed to be tougher. Hugh just brushed it off and said, it won't matter if he's hurt during the season and he won't be able to play anyways. So maybe that's where they started to kind of butt heads on this issue. But nevertheless, they're gone. Freddie Kitchens is in. He took over, and the Browns got back to using Johnson the way that they always had been in past years. He caught all 9 of his passes for 78 yards and 2 scores. Outside of Jarvis Landry and David Njoku, they don't have any good passing options really in Cleveland. So if this is any indication, Duke figures to play a prominent role going forward. I'd be willing to spend 30 to 40% of my remaining budget on him in PPR leagues and maybe half that in standard. Ito Smith. I did not see this rushing performance coming from the Falcons this week. Washington had been pretty darn good against the run, but they just got flat out beat up front by the Falcons' offensive line. Atlanta is always going to utilize a running back by committee. It's been happening for years, and we're seeing it again in 2018. Since Devontae Freeman went on the IR, Smith is averaging 11 touches per game. He's also he's gonna be flex worthy going forward. He's a little touchdown dependent, but he's got 4 rushing touchdowns on the season. I don't think you're ever really gonna feel great about playing him unless Coleman goes down, of course. But you might need to enlist his services through the rest of the buys. He's worth 15 to 20% of your budget if you need help. Elijah McGuire it's good to see him back in New York. He was my favorite Jets running back, I think, coming into the season. And then, of course, he broke his foot, which put him on the shelf for a while. He had 10 touches in his first game back this week, which is encouraging. 7 of those were for carries. He had 67 total yards from scrimmage. He's going to be the passing down back for the Jets. And I think that they're going to be in a lot of positive game scripts. As we've seen, their offense is not very good. Trenton Cannon was all but phased out after McGuire returned this week. The Jets running back coach has compared him to LaDainian Tomlinson, which is absurd, but they think highly of him over there. So I'm really intrigued to see what he can do. I was high on Isaiah Crowell last week against the Dolphins. They had a terrible run defense, but he wasn't able to do much. So I think that this backfield is up for grabs. McGuire is worth 10 to 15% of your budget. Anthony Miller is a guy that I loved coming into the season. I own him all over in Dynasty. He's been very disappointing to start the season, but I think Matt Nagy is going to try to get him going. He led the team in targets this week. It was a blowout. Trubisky only threw 20 passes, so that's encouraging. Allen Robinson has been inactive the past couple of weeks, and he's clearly not right with a groin injury. I think it's possible that Miller could emerge as the number 1 target in the second half of the season. You could definitely go up to 10% of your budget for him in redraft leagues. Another guy, Cordero Patterson. As a Vikings fan, I've been so disappointed in Patterson. He was a first-round draft pick, and I thought he was going to be a good wide receiver. He's not. But Belichick may have figured something out. He's a running back. He's not a wide receiver. The problem has always been his route running. He just never polished that skill. But he's always been electric running the ball. We see him on kick returns. He's looked great doing that. He looked great running the ball downhill against the Packers last week. But the problem is they drafted Sony Michel in the first round, and he almost played in Week 9. So he'll probably be close to playing in Week 10, which means you should probably be leaving Patterson on the waiver wire. But, man, I would love to see him get an opportunity at running back with another team. If you need tight end help, which most of us do, of course. Check to see if Jack Doyle or Eric Ebron is on the waiver wire after the bye week. It's possible teams needed to go, let them go, and fill some starting spots in Week 9. CJ Uzama would be secondary to those two. Jeff Heuerman is another guy that is pretty interesting. He had 10 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown this week. Surprisingly, he led the team in targets over Emmanuel Sanders and Cortland Sutton. He'd been getting some decent amount of looks throughout the season, but now with Demaryius Thomas gone, he was the big beneficiary against Houston. I had real high hopes for Cortland Sutton this past week, and I still do, but Keenum went to Heuerman quite a bit this past week. I think you could go up to 10% for him. And then just quickly, if you're playing in a dynasty league, Nick Mullins is going to be the starting quarterback for the 49ers this coming week. I highly doubt anyone was stashing him. It is possible that somebody picked him up before the Thursday night game and, maybe spot started him. But I think he's worth a look, and especially if you're in a super flex league, I think I'd be comfortable just throwing the remainder of my fab at him because quarterbacks are at such a premium in that format. It's possible that he holds on to the job for the rest of the season. So again, in super flex, that's really valuable. Maurice Harris of the Redskins is another guy I'm interested in. He led the team with 12 targets this week against the Falcons. He caught 10 passes for 124 yards. Their passing game is a mess, though. Alex Smith has gone back into a shell as a very conservative quarterback. It's not all his fault. His weapons are not great at all. Chris Thompson has been injured a lot this year. Josh Doxson might just be a bust. Jamison Crowder hasn't been healthy. Jordan Reed looks like he lost a step. And Paul Richardson appears to just be okay at best. Maybe Maurice Harris steps up and takes over as a top receiver in Washington. So, in Dynasty with real deep rosters, it might be worth spending a little fab on him. All right, guys, that's it.